Ex-Marine Daniel Dugan, seen here, received an indictment some time ago, and he's not really had to face it because he's been not in United States custody. But he was just picked up by the FBI, and he was in Australia, and the story goes that Australia has approved his extradition, and he's going to be coming back to the United States. We'll see. We'll check out the story, but the story is that he was a pilot who was helping the Chinese land airplanes on aircraft carriers, teaching them things that he learned from the United States government that he shouldn't have been teaching them. China is now nudging U.S. planes as they're flying around international airspace. So let's get some backstory on this fella, ex-Marine Daniel Dugan. This story came over from The Guardian, and they tell us that somebody named Mark Dreyfus approves the extradition of a former U.S. Marine over charges of training Chinese pilots. Daniel Dugan's lawyer says that the 54-year-old pilot, the gentleman we just saw, is going to try to fight extradition, and he maintains his innocence. All this is coming out of Australia. The federal government of Australia has approved a request to extradite former U.S. Marine Corps aviator Daniel Dugan to the United States. He faces charges of training Chinese military pilots. We have an unsealed indictment, which we are going to look through in a minute, filed in a Washington district court earlier, alleges that Dugan broke American arms control laws by teaching fighter pilots how to land on aircraft carriers. He's a naturalized Australian. He's accused of having provided military training to Chinese pilots through a test flying academy in South Africa between 2010 and 2012. He was arrested by Australian federal police in a town in New South Wales, October 21st, at the request of the FBI. Shout out to the FBI on that one. Wow. They took a break from playing Where's Waldo on the J6ers. A formal extradition order was lodged on December 9th with Australia's Attorney General Mark Dreyfus, who had until December 25th to make a decision. Spokesman for the Attorney General confirmed the request had in fact been accepted. The Attorney General has complied with the requirement, and Mr. Dugan's lawyer has been informed of the decision. The extradition matter is next listed before an NSW magistrate on 10 January 2023, and the extradition request will be handled accordingly in front of the judge. Dugan's lawyer previously said, no, he's going to fight this, okay? He resolutely maintains his innocence. He denies having breached any U.S. law and Australian law and any international law. Now, Dugan spent more than a decade flying in the U.S. Marine Corps, reaching the rank of major, working as a military tactical flight instructor, according to his company website. The indictment says that Dugan was allegedly contracted directly by an unnamed co-conspirator, a Chinese national, to provide services to a Chinese state-owned company, including evaluations of military pilot trainees, testing of naval aviation-related equipment, and instruction on tactics related to landing on aircraft carriers. Dugan didn't get permission from the U.S. to provide that training. State Department informed him that he was required to train members. That was required. This was required in order to train. Dugan's violation. We'll read the rest of that in the indictment. So, lucrative contracts to train pilots in China is what is being alleged took place with this gentleman right here, Mr. Dugan. And let's look at the indictment and see what this has in store for us. So this was filed some time ago. The grand jury was sworn, and this was filed back in 2017. And he just got arrested. So we're just catching all of this now. United States of America versus Daniel Edmond Dugan. Several different violations: conspiracy, Arms Control Act, international traffic and arms regulations, money laundering, aiding, abetting, and criminal forfeiture. Conspiracy. Let's see what happens here. The conspirators are listed. We've got defendant Daniel Dugan. He was a citizen of the U.S., former commissioned officer of the Marine Corps, naval aviator, also a citizen of Australia. A bunch of different co-conspirators. We've got A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, all the way through H. Let's see who all these people are. All right, A is a South African national, CEO. We've got a national B of the PRC, the People's Republic of China. We've got a South African lawyer, a South African national, a UK national, and a COO of a company. A U.S. citizen, former U.S. Navy officer, and a fighter pilot is another co-conspirator. Another business based out of China, a chief engineer for military aircraft, and co-conspirator H. H is a test flight academy based in South Africa. It's got a presence in the PRC. H trained international military pilots and provided professional support to military customers. H also conducted flight testing and consultation with Chinese state-owned enterprises and companies in South Africa and China. We have some details about the Arms Export Control Act. They say, okay, look, we're going to label things that are defense materials so that they cannot be exported, certain licensing requirements and things. The President of the United States has the authority to implement them. We have the International Trafficking in Arms Regulations, right? These are all the rules. You got to follow these rules in order to do this type of stuff. But Dugan didn't do it. It is the policy of the United States to deny licenses for the export of defense articles to the PRC, to PRC nationals or originating in the PRC. You're not allowed to work with them. Neither Dugan nor any of the co-conspirators sought or obtained licenses to do business and military training with the Chinese. As early as 2008, Dugan received an email from the U.S. Department of State informing him, hey, you're required to register with us and with written authorization if you want to do this. But he didn't. The conduct alleged in this indictment began outside the jurisdiction of any state. The conspiracy began November 2009, all the way up to 2012. Happening in the District of Columbia and elsewhere, they say that Dugan did knowingly conspire to commit offenses against the United States, in particular to export defense services to the People's Republic of China in violation of the law. He was doing this to defraud the United States, using deceit, trickery, and dishonest means. Now, the objects of the conspiracy, right? He's exporting defense articles, evading prohibitions and licensing requirements, concealing the transactions. Here's how it was done, allegedly. F brokered a contract between H and a state-owned entity of the PRC. This contract says that H is going to provide aircraft carrier landing to military pilots of China. The training was to happen in China, South Africa, and other locations. And so in order to enhance the training, the co-conspirators sought an aircraft specifically designed for training naval aviators. It's called a T-2 Buckeye. A co-conspirator, at the behest of others, purchased the Buckeye, the T-2 Buckeye, from a U.S. aircraft dealer and provided false information, to the U.S. aircraft dealer in order to cause the U.S. to issue a license authorizing the export of the plane. So these guys say, look, I mean, if you want to know how to fly like we do in America, you got to get a Buckeye, a T-2 Buckeye. Okay, well, where can we get one? Well, we're going to go buy it from the U.S., and the T-2 Buckeye, you can only get a T-2 Buckeye if you're, kind of legit. So they said, we are legit. We're not giving these to the Chinese, but then they did. A co-conspirator traveled to the U.S. on behalf of another co-conspirator and got the plane. Neither Dugan nor his co-conspirators applied for a license. Now, the training that was provided by one of the co-conspirators required the instructor pilots, the people doing the teaching, with knowledge and experience in aviation, to meet the NATO standards. Co-conspirator contracted Dugan and others to provide this. Many times they did that for a number of years. Dugan also negotiated directly with other co-conspirators to provide additional defense services to the Chinese. These services included an evaluation of the military pilot trainees, testing of naval aviation-related equipment, instruction on tactics, techniques, procedures associated with launching aircraft from and landing on a naval aircraft carrier. Dugan received financial compensation for his services. None of them applied for licenses. Now, in furtherance of this conspiracy, and to accomplish these acts, they did the following. Co-conspirators traveled to the U.S. They inspected the decommissioned T-2 Buckeye. They exchanged emails with Dugan, saying that he's instructing Chinese pilots. That's going to all be taking place in South Africa. In August 2010, emails were sent saying, yep, we've got this. We've got the T2. It's coming in hot. Purchase agreement was completed. They exchanged emails about the plane. They say that one co-conspirator planned to visit Beijing with a former U.S. Navy F-18 pilot. Wow. And a landing signal officer. They're just gobbling up ex-U.S. military. On or about August 2010, they also discussed training courses. When they bought the plane, co-conspirator falsely told them that he would not re-export or resell the plane, but they did. They used it for Chinese pilots. They emailed each other. They prepared for the T2. It was shipped. And once it landed, they provided services. One employee sent an email stating that Dan Dagan, got the name wrong, would be giving a presentation on the fighter pilot's guide to mission success, training the Chinese. Co-conspirator F made a payment to Dugan. He got 9,500 Australian dollars. Another email was sent. More training took place. More training took place. More emails exchanged. Training got delayed. Another payment, $9,900 to Dugan for personal development training. Now, some of these trainings were pretty detailed. There was a document titled DSQ, Naval Aviation Indoctrination Course, which referenced aircraft carrier training instructions and listed Dugan as a co-conspirator, as a presenter. It also had full LSO ground school. So basically what this guy was doing was taking all of his training that he got from the U.S. military and just taking it right over and just showing the Chinese everything. On or about June 9th, another co-conspirator created a resume of Dugan written in Chinese and English. It had his military training, his history, his assignments, his flight history. It had all of his aircraft carrier takeoff and landings and all of his LSO training. That was sent over to somebody else, informing Dugan that he's not coming to the PRC. He got another $9,900 for some additional training. On September 6, 2011, the aircraft got registered in South Africa. Dugan traveled from the United States to China. They paid for that trip, and he got another $20,000, $9,900 payment, $9,800 payment there. Another trip in 2012 to the PRC. He got a number of payments in 24-hour intervals. On July 4, 5, and 6, oh, very appropriate, on America's birthday, July 4th, 3 separate payments. November 15th, the employee co-conspirator emailed additional payments. So you can see just a whole bunch of counts here. Count 2, violation of the Arms Export Control Act. Count 3, violation of the International Trafficking in Arms Regulations. Count 4, conspiracy to launder money. He knew he wasn't supposed to be getting those payments, they're alleging, and he did. He had the intent of carrying out unlawful activity with the PRC. He wired money in US dollars. They planned and they acted to export defense articles. And so they're saying all of that money, everything that he's got to forfeit. Grand jury says all the properties are now theirs. One property in Tasmania, Australia, another property in New South Wales. Again, all your base are belong to us, they say. Criminal forfeiture, all signed off by a grand jury out of the District of Columbia, going now to the Australian authorities to see if they will ultimately export him, transport him, and extradite him back to the United States. So some interesting developments there, because the Chinese, they're getting pretty bold with their planes. We know that Mr. Dugan evidently, allegedly, trained some of their pilots, and some of their pilots are getting a little bit problematic. This came from the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, published December 29th. U.S. Indo-PACOM, which is a government acronym if you ever saw one, they release a statement on unsafe intercept of U.S. aircraft over the South China Sea. On December 21st, China Standard Time, a People's Liberation Army Navy J-11 fighter pilot performed an unsafe maneuver during an intercept of a U.S. Air Force RC-135 aircraft. This unlawfully, at the time, the U.S. aircraft was lawfully conducting routine operations over the South China Sea in international airspace. The plane pilot flew an unsafe maneuver by flying in front of and within 20 feet of the nose of the U.S. plane, forcing the U.S. plane to take evasive maneuvers to avoid a collision. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Joint Force, they write, is dedicated to free and open Indo-Pacific regions, and we will continue to fly, sail, and operate at sea and in international airspace with due regard for the safety of all vessels. We expect all countries in the Indo-Pacific region to use the international airspace safely and in accordance with the law. This is the scene titled here, you see, Unclassified. Let's see if we can blow this up. No. Unclassified, 12/21, December 2022, unsafe intercept. Here's what it looks like. That's the Chinese plane. Being recorded from the U.S. side. Getting very close there. Yeah. Now, I wonder how they learned those maneuvers. Where did that training come from? Don't know. But looks like they are testing the limits of their airspace. And so we're going to learn more about what is happening in China because the House of Representatives just banned TikTok. And NBC is very unhappy about that. So we'll talk about NBC. We're going to check in with Russia and Medvedev's predictions for 2023 right after a quick message from our friends over at 4 Patriots. My friends, a food shortage could be coming. Even in the United States, experts have written about this as recently as July. Drought, inflation, even new policies are pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriot survival food kits ever. This is not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years super survival food, hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, and they stack easily. They have different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including this 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com. Use code Robert. Start building your own stockpile today. Yeah, that's right. Go to 4patriots.com. Get your survival food. Load up on those calories so that you are nice and healthy. And so we're going to take a look now at what else is going on with China because there is a TikTok ban that just came out from the House of Representatives. And there's a representative called Tenny who says maybe there will be more coming down the pike. But as we see that there are the Chinese fighter pilots, presumably trained, some of them, by Daniel Dugan, nudging U.S. planes. People are wondering about Taiwan. What's going to be happening with Taiwan? The U.S. is pretty much, committed to Ukraine at this point. They have whatever we have, and there seems to be no end in sight. But what about Taiwan? Anthony Blinken said that the U.S. is kind of busy in Ukraine and said that if the U.S. had still been bogged down in Afghanistan, maybe they couldn't do all that good work for the Ukrainians. But that caused a lot of people to wonder, what does that mean if China makes an incursion into Taiwan? Is that presuming now that the U.S. can't do anything to support them because we're so bogged down in Ukraine?
When it comes to Russia's war against Ukraine, if we were still in Afghanistan, it would have, I think, made much more complicated the support that we've been able to give and that others have been able to give Ukraine to resist and push back against the Russian aggression.
Yeah, because the only thing the U.S. can do now is one war at a time, and sort of even barely that. So Anthony Blinken is causing some people to be a little bit, concerned about what the U.S. might be committed to if the Chinese decide to do like the Russians did and call the United States bluff. We'll see. Now, in the House of Representatives, they banned the TikTok app, and we followed this a bit around the government. Different government entities have banned TikTok because it's a Chinese spy app. And now NBC News is reporting on what happened because a memo came out in the House of Representatives, and they said, you guys can't use this garbage app. Uninstall it.
TikTok is best known for its viral videos of everything from popular dance routines to shopping hauls.
I needed like heels for like events and stuff.
Totally.
But in Washington, it's becoming one of the most deleted apps. The House, the latest branch to announce a ban, saying House members and staffers must delete and no longer download TikTok
and stop
on their
those stupid
government-issued
dances.
Mobile devices. NBC News obtaining the memo from the House's chief administration officer, calling the app a high risk to users due to a number of security risks. This comes just days after Congress approved its $1.7 trillion spending bill.
Amendment is agreed to,
including a requirement for executive branch agency employees to remove TikTok from their work phones. And it goes beyond the Capitol. At least 16 states prohibit using TikTok on government networks. And some universities are now blocking access to the app on school Wi-Fi or devices. TikTok, owned by Chinese company ByteDance, has not commented on Congress's latest actions, but has said in the past it does not store U.S. user data in China and does not share information with the Chinese government.
Oh, come on. That's giving them a major benefit of the doubt on that one. We listened to ByteDance's CEO and to TikTok CEO and how they mince their words. They're being very careful about that.
TikTok is negotiating a deal with the Justice Department to address security concerns. CEO Vanessa Pappas speaking at a congressional hearing in September.
What I can commit to is that our final agreement with the U.S. government will satisfy all national security concerns. Yes.
Yeah, right. I'm not so sure about that. We'll see. I think that it is a long shot that TikTok acquiesces in legitimately, right, to what the U.S. wants. I think that they're always going to be siphoning off something from that app, no matter what they say. We have another House representative, Miss Tenney. She says that the banning of TikTok is a great first step, but it's only a first step. They've got a lot of influence, access to 100 million Americans for influence.
Well, they're going to have to because President Biden is signing the omnibus big ugly into law. So that will be the law of the land, and they have to comply with it. She's
right about that.
This is just a first step. Remember, there are several states around the nation who have already done this and taken a step to ban TikTok. And this is because they're using all kinds of technology to follow and trace us, biometrics, everything they can see on our phone and where we search, everything. I mean, I'm sure that Google and other big tech companies also have that power, as we've learned with the interactions between the FBI and Twitter, thanks to Elon Musk's unfolding of that dramatic
everywhere.
issue in terms of corruption in our government. But, we've got to follow these things. And I think it's really important that we keep the Chinese Communist Party in check and prevent them from continuing to do surveillance at the mass rate that they're doing and influencing not just our children, but our entire society.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's not the first that we've heard that you've been deemed to use. What about national security risks? I mean, is that something that the government should be worried about?
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is the thing where, once they infiltrate individuals and get into the individuals, it doesn't matter what the government does at that point because they've gotten into every aspect of our lives. And there's over 100 million users in the United States right now of TikTok. I just don't happen to be one. I've always been very suspect of it, and I also don't have time. It seems a little silly to me, but I know a lot of young people do that, and many of them don't even care. Their parents have said, don't do this. I've heard this over and over. Like, we don't care. The government already looks at everything. But, that may be true, but, much less surveillance would certainly impact us, and it is definitely a national security risk for all of us when each individual has been impacted.
100 million people, and a lot of kids don't even care. A lot of parents don't even care, right? How many adults care about it? They'd rather just sit there on TikTok rather than, going over to Twitter, hopping on YouTube. It's just there. Everybody's siphoning off your information. You click, oh, agree, scroll all the way to the bottom. Do you agree to 35,000 pages of terms and conditions? Yeah, whatever, man. I don't care. What do you need? Both kidneys? Take them. Who needs them? All right. So that's what she's talking about there. And there's some interesting things happening with China. Okay. A lot of activity over there. We'll see how this continues to unfold. I think the United States should get real serious about TikTok, not just at a governmental level, but deeper. We'll see if that comes to fruition, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. Now, simultaneously to the developments in China, there was a very interesting Twitter post from the Russian leader Dmitry Medvedev. Now, he is a former president of Russia from 2008 to 2012. Currently, he's the deputy chair of the Security Council for the Russian Federation. So he has been in charge of Russia prior to Putin for some period of time. And he posted this the day after Christmas. It was a very interesting prognostication type of a thread. Dmitry Medvedev, a Russian government official, said that on the New Year's Eve, everybody's into making predictions. Many come up with futuristic hypotheses, as if competing to single out the wildest and even most absurd ones. Here's our humble contribution. What can happen in 2023? Dmitry says, oil price will rise to $150 a barrel. Gas will top $5 per 1 cubic meters. The UK will rejoin the EU. The EU will collapse after the UK's return. Euro will drop out of use as the former EU currency. Poland and Hungary will occupy western regions of the formerly existing Ukraine. The Fourth Reich will be created, encompassing the territory of Germany and its satellites, Poland, the Baltic states, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Kiev Republic, and other outcasts. War will break out between France and the Fourth Reich. Europe will be divided, Poland repartitioned in the process. Northern Ireland will separate from the UK and join the Republic of Ireland. Coming to the United States, he says, civil war will break out. California and Texas becoming independent states as a result. Texas and Mexico will form an allied state. Elon Musk will win the presidential election in a number of states, which after the new civil war's end will have been given to the GOP. Readers are correcting Dmitry. They say, hey, dummy, no elections for president are going to be happening in 2023. So you're wrong already. And it says Elon Musk was not born in the U.S., meaning he can't run for president. Well, he can't run for president of the United States, but what about president of the great new state of United Texas? Maybe they don't have that provision in their constitution. All of the largest stock markets and financial activity will leave the U.S. and Europe and move to Asia. Oof, doesn't sound good. The Bretton Woods system of monetary management will collapse, leading to the IMF and World Bank crash. The euro and the dollar will stop circulating as the global reserve currencies. Digital fiat currencies will be actively used instead. Twitter types, hey, Dmitry, the Bretton Woods system was a system of fixed exchange rates, existed prior up until 1971. When it ended, it didn't lead to the collapse of anything. Dmitry finishes, he says, season's greetings to you all, Anglo-Saxon friends, and their happily oinking piglets. That's what's going on over there in Russia. So a very interesting thread. I think it's ambitious, certainly ambitious. A lot would be happening in that year. I mean, it'd be a crazy year. But if you had explained 2020 to me, I would have said, no, that's crazy. That would never happen. And it did. So we'll see. Hopefully he's incorrect about all of that. But of course, we will see. Now, meanwhile, in Russia, some interesting things are happening there as well. Russian generals just keep falling out of windows and they just keep dropping dead all of a sudden. And it's not from the thing. Second Russian defense sector bigwig dies in 2 days. The former attorney general previously commanded Russia's ground troops and died just 2 days after Vladimir Putin abruptly canceled a planned visit. So this dude is no longer with us. The former commander-in-chief of Russia's ground forces died in a military hospital earlier this week, the second bigwig to die in just 2 days. These are just the latest senior Russian military or political elites to drop dead unexpectedly. Somebody named Alexei Maslov was a retired army general, was serving as special representative of the military. He died unexpectedly last Saturday. No cause was given. He was expected to fly in at another location. Putin canceled his visit. His death came after another death, Alexander Buzikov. He died tragically from unknown causes as well. That's weird. And there was another person who fell out of a window. And person is not referenced in this article. But no cause of death given. And so the Russians are nuking their generals as well. And so, as you can see, my friends, there's just a lot going on internationally. China is nudging U.S. planes. We've got an ex-Marine named Daniel Dugan who's in the process of being extradited, facing criminal charges on all sorts of conspiracies. And of course, the world will continue to navigate all of these issues and more. And we'll continue to cover it. And I hope you join us as we do. Thank you for liking this video, wherever it is you're watching. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.